Now let's talk about the three different causes of inflation, three primary causes of inflation. So the first type of inflation, we look at demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation happens when you have an increase in aggregate demand where economy is really operating either at full or near to full employment level. Now how does this happen? So let's take a look here. We are at AD0, which means to say that the upper level is at Y0 and your full employment level is YF. There is a distance away from the full employment level, which means to say there is actually some unutilized economic resources that are lying around doing nothing. So when you have an increase in aggregate demand, AD0 increases to AD1, AD shift from AD0 to AD1, you move from Y0 to YF. Now, why is it that when you move from Y0 to YF, your prices also go up from P0 to P1? So the simple explanation here is that if you are already quite close to full employment level, resources in the economy are becoming increasingly scarce. As resources in the economy become increasingly scarce, and you want to actually produce more goods and services and satisfy more of the ones that people are having, then you will have to actually beat up the existing firms that want to hire resources in order to produce more goods and services. Will have to beat up the prices of the factors of production. In this case, we're talking about labor. So the prices of factors of production will be beaten up, and this causes actually your prices in the economy to rise. So this is what actually causes demand pull inflation. It's when you have very scarce resources left in the economy and you have demand for goods and services. So that is actually what I call demand pull inflation. Next, let's look at your cost push inflation. Your cost push inflation happens because of an increase in prices of factor inputs. So as factor inputs become more expensive, firms will have to pay more to buy these factor inputs, so they actually raise their prices of their final output. So when your cost of production go up, firms will actually have an increase in cost of production, and this increase in cost of production means that they will actually charge more for their final output. And when we use your ADAS analysis, it's basically a leftward shift of your SRAS curve. So you see when your SRAS curve shift to the left, it looks like an upward shift. Your prices go up from P0 to P1. That results in what we call cost push inflation, where firms pass on the higher cost of production associated with the higher prices of factor inputs back to the consumers in terms of higher prices. And lastly, imported inflation. As the term suggests, imported inflation is inflation that is imported. It comes from a foreign source. So say for example, Singapore depends on the rest of the world for food sources. So say we depend on mostly Thailand for rice. If Thailand has some form of flooding event or drought that causes prices of rice to go up, if price of rice go up in Thailand, inevitably prices of rice in Singapore will go up because we import this rice. So usually when there's a supply shock and it causes prices of goods and services to rise in other countries, prices of goods and services also rise in countries which depends heavily on imported goods. So that's imported inflation.